people of the net, I am Countess Rose and welcome to day 11, and today I just kind of felt like doing a story time. It seems that everyone has that one interesting art teacher in their lives, and let's just say my high school art teacher, yeah, she was a thing. So I need to first explain how my high school slash just school in general was set up within the arts. I went to a teeny tiny little Texas high school where the average class size was about 40, was on the high end. So very small, very tiny. The high school and the elementary school could be crammed into one block, which it kind of was, and both schools shared art classrooms, gymnasiums, cafeterias, and the library. So it was very much smushed together. And the arts, we had one art teacher for K through 12. And how it was set up is when you're in elementary school, so from kindergarten to 6th grade, you got to take an art class once a week. But after that, you could not take any art classes until you got to 11th grade. So from 7th to 11th grade, no art classes. And me being the little weird art kid was exceedingly bummed out by this. But my 10th grade year, I was really looking forward to the next year because we had an awesome dude for an art teacher. Let's call him Mr. K. Now Mr. K, he was a legit art teacher. He had his own personal kiln he brought to the school so that kids could fire their own pottery. He ended up painting this giant mural in the art room, which was really, really cool. Like, our school mascot was a Trojan, so it's kind of like a Spartan warrior. And he had this very stylized battle scene painted in the art room. And it was nothing gory, it was nothing graphic, it was just like, you could see the silhouettes of the two armies charging toward each other, and there was like some, it was all done in reds and golds and browns, and it was just really, really pretty. And so I was really looking forward to having him as my art teacher the next year. The sad thing was, that was his last year at that school. He moved on to a different school, and we got, as a replacement, Mrs. C. Now, Mrs. C was a lovely woman. She just wasn't a great art teacher. And I'm sure for the kids, like the young kids that she was teaching, she was wonderful. But me as an 11th grade, toeing the line between emo and goth, yeah. The first day of art class, I walk in and I look over to look at the mural that our previous teacher had painted that embodied our school spirit and was the coolest thing that we had at the time to see. It had been painted over and it had one of those cheap like paper trees you get at like a teacher store that like have the alphabet on it, and I just felt a crushing blow. And I asked her, why did you paint over that? And she's like, oh, it's too graphic. A paper cut would be too graphic for this woman. But I'm just like, okay, fine, whatever. I had a picture of it hanging up in my room. It's cool, it's fine. Let's just say, being taught by this woman, we had very little in the ways of actually learning the principles of art, which thankfully I got when I went to college, but basically it's project of the week with this woman. And we was about maybe a step above macaroni art for a good chunk of it. So I started doing my own thing in class because we was basically given a participation grade. It's like you had to be doing something or you wouldn't get a grade, but you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. And so I ended up being my little weird weeboo self. I draw a lot of anime. A lot of anime. And the thing was, I didn't draw just like regular anime. I did this one technique called, it's drawing by grid. And basically what you do is you take your image that you want to copy, because basically my nickname was the copy machine. I could take a small image from Google and like blow it up 4 times the size. using this method. But basically you take your image, you draw a grid on it, and then you draw a scaled up version of that grid on another piece of paper, and you draw what's in the individual squares, and in the end you get a copy of the original piece but on a larger scale. So I did this mainly for 2 years because I took art classes both times, because I wasn't going to be taking no ag, I wasn't going to be taking PE because I had already done my time. But I know she meant well. She would do this thing at the end of the year that she called the art show. Basically, it was taking all the pieces that the students had completed from the high school class and hang them up in the cafeteria / auditorium. Again, teeny tiny school, cafeteria was half auditorium, half stage. And I still cringe at this. The fact that she would do this. Or stage was basically just a platform set into a wall. And the walls themselves were, I don't recall if they actually were concrete or just like really, really durable sheetrock. But it was hard as a rock. I'm going to say it was concrete. And instead of using, oh, I don't know, sticky tack or tape, she uses fucking hot glue to hang up everyone's pieces. I remember having to go in there to get my work, because I actually did this series of this one, my senior year, I did a series of these characters from a anime called Rosen Maidens, and they're all, the main characters are these little ball joint dolls. And I did drawings of each one of the dolls. And trying to get these drawings that I spent literally months on, trying to get them off the wall without damaging them, because again, hot glued to the wall and left there for 3 weeks. I was on the verge of tears, and I finally just had to go and borrow a knife from one of the cafeteria ladies to actually scrape it off. And it tore a couple of the good ones. I'm just like, oh god. But yeah. She was an interesting one. I don't know if it's like, it was just because my weirdness of being a edgy teenager, but first thing in the morning and your art teacher comes in, first off, she's late by a good 15 minutes, and how our school was set up, the art rooms were not in the actual school building. They were in these little outside buildings. They weren't exactly portables, they were physical buildings, but they were separate from everything else, and you had to walk through a breezeway to get to them. And that, she had the key, and you had to be standing outside waiting for her in the cold, because she would never show up on time, and it was easily 20-30 minutes, to the point where sometimes I'm half debating to go get someone saying, hey, we are locked out of the art room, someone come let us in. But also on top of the fact, she's one of those people where I am not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination. I have said this multiple times. She's one of those people who is a little bit too perky in the morning. Like, she is like doped up on caffeine and like just happiness. I'm just like, I don't trust you. No one should be this happy this early in the morning. And all of us were just ready to be out of the cold. And then she would take 5 minutes to unlock the door. I'm just like beating my head against a pole. But yeah. What can you do? What can you do? You get what you get when you go to a small school. It wasn't all bad, but we did do the linoleum prints. We tried stencils, but half the time she didn't even know how to use the equipment, and half the time she would freak out if anyone did anything slightly risque. Like, I remember there was this one girl my senior year. She did this lovely picture of a fairy, and it was nude, but it was only from the back, and you could just see the tiny little bit of butt, because the character was like sitting down and facing away from the facing away, so all you could see was her back, and she was sitting, and really the detail was in the wings. And she would not hang this up with everyone else's stuff because it was too risque. And I'm sitting here looking over at another kid's art, and he's drawing like some of the goriest stuff from like God of War. I'm just like, okay, whatever, dude, whatever, you do you. But yeah, what's the weirdest thing your art teacher ever did? Put them down in the comments below. I'd love to read them. So if y'all like these story times, to go along with these 100 days of animation, and you'll have questions or you want to hear about some experiences I might have, leave suggestions down below. And until next time, guys, I'll see y'all later. Bye bye.